Ever since Disney thought it was a great idea to re-release Snow White into theaters during Mother's Day weekend and how it backfired on them in the most humiliating way possible, you can only imagine what's going through Bob Iger's mind right now and exactly what he's trying to do to salvage this movie at all costs. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Rachel Zegler is that yes, we know that she is still to this very day on the damage control train to really help and save this movie ahead of the Disney Plus release, which by the way, Disney does aim to drop this thing on their streaming platform by the end of June into early July. That's the overall general timeline that they are aiming for right now. And they are hoping, they are banking that those that never checked out the movie in the theaters will decide to go ahead and check it out on Disney Plus. Now, we already know that Rachel Zegler is going on multiple temper tantrums, rants, and tirades to really convince the entire general public to go ahead and check out her film, regardless of the criticism, regardless of the awful reviews out there, and just how it is considered by far one of the worst, if not the worst, movie by the Walt Disney Company. So what's interesting about all this is that yes, we do know that Rachel Zegler is going to do whatever that she can to protect and defend her career, and if you even want to say that she has a career at this point, she's not getting any major movie offers from many major Hollywood studios out there. If anything, right now, she's only getting very small roles, alright, very minor roles. One film, for example, is with Marissa Tomei. It's going to have a very small budget, probably around $3 to $4 million. Very small. But what's interesting about all of this moving forward has a lot to do with the Walt Disney Company and how they're still dealing with the aftermath of Rachel Zegler and the Snow White box office disaster, let alone now they are dealing with Ironheart. However, Rachel Zegler yet again went on a tirade as she begins to promote the Disney Plus release of Snow White, which Disney is using, of course, their ability to release this thing by the end of June into early July. Now, her rant also comes after the re-release flopped during Mother's Day weekend. Zegler delivered the following. As moviegoers, it's up to them to decide whether or not they want to fall for the many lies coming from the loud minority that sets themselves up to be the majority. And one thing I will admit that bothers me is this growing issue with sexism and misogyny in this country that is very difficult to tackle when you are dealing with an industry that enables that kind of behavior. When I was working on this film, I would absolutely have to say the hardest thing I had to accept was when the ending was completely changed. It was altered. We were originally going to go with a darker tone and more open-ended ending to set up a sequel for Snow White. And it was a scene that I really put all my energy into, and it was very disheartening to me when I heard the news that they weren't going through with that and ended up based, of course, on my performance. We had quite a number of creative issues and differences for that ending that was really going to feature some of the best acting work I did for Snow White. There was a song that I invested so much of myself into that was wrongfully taken away for the ending that was going to transition to this very revealing scene, setting up a potential sequel. There was a lot of blame gaming going on with my personal and political views that led to these changes, and I thought that was completely out of line and unfair. But this is how the industry is. It's very unfair toward actresses like myself who aim higher to become the very character that they have to be for the film. But looking back at all the critics and the criticism that our film gained, a lot of this had to do with the fake reviews across social media. I think that we have to really take a closer look at why reviews can't just be trusted anymore. I don't think that we could ever trust reviews again after what happened to Snow White and what it went through, and how it was targeted by the toxic male demographic that have no idea what it means to be a powerful leader. So guys, let me stop here for one moment quick. Now, again, this alludes to what we talked about a year ago. Geez, time flies by. But we talked about this like a year ago, that Disney was indeed setting up a sequel for Snow White that was going to be loosely based off of a movie called Happily Ever After, where they were going to explore the new villain to be the evil queen's brother or something around those lines. So you can see how Rachel's kind of opening up to that and how Disney was exploring those ideas and how that all basically vanquished. It all disappeared before her very own eyes. The minute she started things, of course, and made everything political through her social media accounts when promoting this movie, and she's openly admitting that, yeah, things suddenly changed when she, embraced her overall politics into the general public, right? And how basically she also had a very big problem with that. Now again, we know that there were a lot of scenes that were supposed to be within the third act that would lead up to an altered ending of Snow White. The ending that we got was, you know, basically this celebration, which was very cringeworthy, I gotta say. But looking at Snow White in isolation, whether it was going to have a darker ending or it was going to deal with a different ending that would be more lighthearted, it doesn't matter. Nobody liked Rachel Zegler to begin with based on her behavior, based on what she did, both behind the scenes and in the public. The whole Gal Gadot drama was also another major problem that was not only discussed in social media, but also across mainstream media. It was everywhere. And this movie was just flooded with disasters, alright? It had a lot of issues going for itself. There was really no recovering from this. It's not going to recover for Disney Plus as well. I can almost guarantee you all of that. But what's interesting about this yet again is that Rachel Zegler is going off on Disney somewhat here, blaming them for cutting the scene based on her politics, based on creating a lot of problems, and that's also another problem about Rachel Zegler. She can never really take no for an answer. She can never accept any kind of criticism or a specific choice made by the executives, in this case Disney, to take a different route with their film, based on her behavior, by the way. But she goes on to conclude, because that's what this film was all about, and why we had to change the source material. I really pressed this on Mark and Greta that we could not just turn this into the same old 1937 film again, and how we really needed to reinvent Snow White. Moviegoers just expect to stick to the source material, and I think that's the growing problem in cinema right now, and why it's struggling as we speak. We have to modernize these female roles that we are handed to on paper, and I will never apologize for my comments on how it's just not 1937 anymore, because it's not. We had to attract Snow White to a modern female audience that would work. Again, that's where she's also missing another point, is that they don't have to shift away from source material. Just because you stick to source material, it doesn't make the movie repetitive or boring or anything like that. That's what she doesn't get. And the fact that she doesn't apologize for her previous comments, I think it just goes to show you that she is just going off the rails because she knows it's over. She knows that she has no shot or chance with Disney ever again. In fact, Disney wants nothing to do with Rachel Zegler, period. With any other project, whether it's with Pixar or a Disney live-action project, whatever it may be, they want nothing to do with her ever again. In fact, she's out for the Pirates of the Caribbean remake. She is no longer a part of that. We talked about this months ago. And that happened pretty early on in the process of when she was creating a lot of issues for Snow White. But again, you can see that, you know, we have this second phase of marketing for Snow White for the Disney Plus release. I guess they're banking on that to be a success on their platform. I highly doubt it will. We'll have to wait and see, but I really don't see it recovering at all. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about Zegler and the whole Disney Snow White situation going on over there. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.